whole system, nobody sits down and tells us that as a girl you have to behave like it. But we see all around us, it's in our families, it's the laws. For example, our law does not accept marital rape. Marital rape is not acceptable. Why? Because if a man is married to a woman, it is obviously for the sex. And then how can she deny? So this is how, when I'm saying my right, my body, this is the first thing. Our law does not accept that as a woman, I have a right over my body and I can say no to my husband. So
पुण्यातील शोध इको या संस्थेने आयोजित केलेल्या कार्यक्रमात डॉक्टर निलंगे सरदेशपांडे यांनी माय बॉडी माय राईट या विषयावर तसेच भारतामध्ये महाराष्ट्रात स्त्री व पुरुषांचं प्रमाण किती आहे, महिलांना काय त्रास करावा लागतो विशेष करून ग्रामीण भागातील याबद्दल माहिती सांगितली. त्याचा हा भाग आपल्यासाठी.
Good evening, and first of all, big thank you to Shodiko, because though I have been in Pune since like last almost 42 years, but very rare occasions I get to interact with the audience in Pune, because most of my work is in other parts of India like Assam, Gujarat, and very recently we started working in Maharashtra. So thanks a lot for this opportunity. So today I thought I'll talk a little bit about how gender affects our health, and I will, because this is a huge topic, so I will focus primarily on reproductive health because that is area which is close to my heart. So my topic is gender and health, my body, my right. So what I will try to do is I will take you through the different aspects of reproductive health and try to show how the family, how the health system actually impacts women's decision making around those areas of reproductive health. So basically, I thought of starting with the concept of gender. I know this is the terminology we have been using since last almost 30-40 years. So not to say that this is something new word which we all are hearing for the first time, but I have often seen that we use the terminology sex and gender very interchangeably. In the sense, the forms also that we fill, we are asked to fill our gender. So actually, it's not the gender that we are writing; it's we are writing our biological sex, right? So that's why probably sometimes because we use this terminology so commonly, we feel that we know the meaning. But I will take just 5-10 minutes to explain like what do I mean, like what do we mean by gender, so that all of us are on that page. So basically, this is a famous quote by Simone de Beauvoir. It's her photograph, where she says, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." So when we are born, we are either male or female, or trans person or intersex. However, the way we are brought up decides whether we will become a woman or a man, like good woman. And even women also, we have to be a good woman. We cannot be anybody else. So I'm just going to take few minutes about gender next. So basically, like when we are talking about sex, it's a biological thing. So when we are born, the doctors will look at the external genitalia and they will assign a gender to us. And then on the form, it will be filled either male or female usually. And for example, for intersex people, whatever doctor identify, they will write. And subsequently, maybe when the child comes into puberty, if there is some difference, then they will be taken to the doctor and then the gender can be decided. And for trans people, it is still very different. I'm currently talking only mainly about male and female for few minutes. Whereas gender is a very much social construct. So because it is a social construct, it will change from society to society. So the gender norms in India, the gender norms in Africa, and the gender norms in other developed countries will vary slightly. So I'm not saying a huge variation, but culturally, because it's a cultural term, so what is a good woman? These will change across society. About sex, mostly by birth. Again, like I said, initially our slide always had it's by birth. We never thought of that mostly by birth. But now, since we talk a lot about intersex and trans people, we know that by birth, for large number of people, it will be decided. But for few, definitely it will come later. And gender is how we are brought up. For example, very simple example which we use in our trainings is suppose there is some delivery happening, like somebody has delivered in our family. We go to see the baby and we see all the babies in the hospital. We just cannot make out who is the boy and who is the girl, right? Because all the babies are wrapped. But for the same child, when you go for his first birthday, the moment you enter the hall, you know who are the boys and the girls. Because the girls will be all wearing nice frocks with frills, nice cute ponytails, and boys will be all denims and all. So it's very And everything like the length of hair, the clothes we wear, everything is largely decided by the society, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Third is difficult to change because it's a biological thing. Difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible because we are seeing a lot of trans people. Like one of our studies is in Gujarat, where we are actually studying the sexual and reproductive health needs of trans people. And we are also interviewing like trans women, trans men, and Hijra community. And we are looking at their transitioning process. So it's a sort of long drawn process. A lot of surgeries and treatments are required. So even though it is possible to change, it is difficult. That is one thing. But generally, it is because it's as a society we have decided how a woman should be, how a man should be. So it's up to us. If we think that this system is not working, probably it's the time that we need to change it. And most important, from nature's perspective, nature doesn't say that male is superior and female is inferior, but it's us. It's us who have decided that male are superior because we are in a patriarchal society and females are somewhere second have a secondary status on it. It is reflected in most of the things. For example, simple thing when we marry, obviously what we look for is between the boy and a girl, the groom and the bride. The groom should be taller, should be more educated, should have higher salary. So everything should be little more than the girl. It's what we see so that we can maintain that hierarchy is the thing. So that's how the problem is there. See, people say, what is your problem? Why are you feminists always fighting? Like, how does it matter if somebody is cooking, the other person is earning? It's not that who's cooking and who's earning. The thing is the value that we have attached to everything that women are doing and the value that we have attached to everything that a man is doing is totally different. And just because something is being done by a man, we automatically think it's a great thing. And just because somebody is like something is done by women, we think that it's not so important. Yeah, I sometimes take this example from the COVID days, that in COVID, when all the men started preparing those Dalgona coffees, next day everybody was on the internet with their photographs of one coffee. But women have been cooking for ages, like our grandmothers and all. Nobody ever thought of putting it on the internet, right? That I have been cooking. But just making one cup of coffee makes it sensational that men are also into kitchen. This is a small example. I'm saying that everything that women have been doing, we take it for granted. That's the issue. Right? So basically, I would just like to uh, your opinion about out of these two pictures, which one is more acceptable to us as a society here? Because now somebody comes a girl walking up into a jeans and a t-shirt and a shirt, and a man walking with a sari. Which one is more acceptable to us? Well, how many eyebrows will be raised if a man comes in a sari here? All, right? So for us, so we should be actually frank that we know that this way we have accepted. Women behaving like men we have accepted. But men behaving like women, definitely we have some, not objection, some hesitancy with that. Why is it so? It's just the opposite, right? For so many years, men were wearing jeans and shirts, and now women are wearing. Now women were wearing sari, men are wearing sari. How does it matter? It's just a clothing, right? Like, would somebody like to say that? Why do you think that this is a little less acceptable? Any guesses? Like, I want to know the answer. We are not used to. We are so used to also, but why nobody tried this for so long? See, this got quickly accepted, right? The change. We are not used to this, right? But there's also, because we have that hierarchy in our mind, somebody who is at a lower level trying to become like a higher level is easily understood. That's why, like men are higher levels, so trying to become like a man is acceptable. I'm not saying we are doing it deliberately, but I'm saying somewhere in our mind, we somebody who's at a higher level, like man. Why does he want to become like a woman? And like this is how somehow slowly, like, if more men start wearing sari, it will become acceptable. That's why I'm saying that gender is a social construct. So today the construct is that this is more acceptable, this is less acceptable. But there are more men who feel that sari is more comfortable, and if they start wearing, probably because there is nothing biological, right? If sari is a convenient outfit, men should also wear. But let me tell you how gender operates, and there's one example. During the tsunami, There were studies which showed that because sari is not a convenient outfit. If you want to run, suppose there's a fire now, who will go down first? I will be the last person because I'm the only person who's wearing sari. So, but I'm saying this is not a very convenient outfit for if you want to climb on a tree or anything. So during tsunami, it was seen that no women actually they could not run because of their outfits, whereas so that was also seen. So it's not just a matter of outfit, but also it has its implications in terms of health. Next. Yeah. So just to give the definition, how we look at gender is it is a system which tells us that if you are born as a woman or a man, what kind of norms, behaviors, and roles are associated with. So the moment we are born as a girl, largely it is understood that taking care of household is primarily a woman's responsibility, and earning is primarily a man's responsibility. It's largely understood. So most of our career choices are also determined by whether we are born as a girl or a boy. And we have seen, for example, now I'm a doctor. Suppose somebody is taking admission for MD. So parents will say, go for a branch where you can manage your household as well as you can do your practice. If there is any branch where you need to be, like, for example, longer surgeries for 8-10 hours, then obviously girls think, how will I manage both? And probably the choices are like going for a branch where maybe you can manage. So generally that guides on our mind that whenever we are choosing a profession, probably we should go for a profession where we can manage the. That is one thing. Again, behaviors and roles, I will give you more examples. And second, this whole system, nobody sits down and tells us that as a girl you have to behave like it. But we see all around us, it's in our families, it's the laws. For example, our law does not accept marital rape. Marital rape is not acceptable. Why? Because if a man is married to a woman, it is obviously for the sex. And then how can she deny? So this is how, when I'm saying my right, my body, this is the first thing. Our law does not accept that as a woman, I have a right over my body and I can say no to my husband. So this is how law also propagates. Education, we are slowly changing, but earlier there was one study which looked into actually the textbooks. And if you see earlier textbooks, they will have the same figures like the father is earning, the mother is cooking kind of pictures. So slowly, when you see these pictures, also it gets into your mind that okay, this is the role a woman should play. Now we are changing. Even advertisement, for that matter. Earlier, a large number of advertisements actually propagated this kind of stereotype what a woman was doing. But now slowly, like we are seeing that there are many, I think, item advertisement, quite a few advertisements where you can see that this breaking of gender stereotypes. Bollywood is again a sort of a big way in which these gender stereotypes are propagated. For example, that famous song "Tu haan kar ya na kar, tu hai meri kiran." So it's like what we say that it's not your choice, it's not your consent. Right? Tu haan kar ya na kar, tu hai meri kiran. So that's how actually men also think that if you pester a girl for like few times, she will say yes to you. Because that's how we are actually projecting towards a way of masculinity that you have to overpower her and all those things. And also for girls, we say, "Tu haan ya na kar, tu hai meri kiran." So I think these are all the different ways in which we actually propagate the gender. Again, today what I'm going to talk largely, I will give examples of male and female wherever we have data for trans people because it's very recently, like 2019, we accepted that transgender is a category and we have started asking for that identity, and so data is very limited. So because most of the things which I will talk about, I prefer to talk on the basis of the data because all of us have a very different perspective about the world and we feel what is happening around me is the reality, and that's true because that's our world. But what I try to do is I'll give you some data where we can see that okay, even if in my community women are much more educated, they are working, and in a sense there is no limitation on them because they are women. But if we see largely what is happening, we will come to know what is the situation of gender. So earlier we thought it's only male, female. Now we know there is a whole spectrum. We can be trans, like there could be trans man, trans woman, intersex, there could be hijra. So there is a whole spectrum within that. Now person has a choice to decide what gender they belong to. Next. Yeah. So basically, when we say gender as a system, there are three ways actually this system will, we will be able to see the system around us. Next. Yeah. So first is norms. Like I said, in the beginning, uh, we have a very clear definition of what is a good boy, what is a good man. For example, if I ask you obedient, whose adjective is that with you? Who needs to be obedient? Good. Girls. Strong, sacrificing. Good. So, I don't have to say anything. The moment I utter that word, it comes to our mind that this is applicable to a woman or a man. Because we know, see, as a mother, she will not feel like, I'm saying if there is only one man, obviously she will not feel like eating. But that's also conditioning that even if you like something very much, we feel that there's a sacrificing thing. So I have to keep it for others. Mango is a very small. I'm saying mango in this is because it's the season. But this is a very clear about property. Very recently, till a long time we didn't have like daughters did not have and they could not have the property rights. But recently it was like the daughters have the equal rights. Now all in most of the cases, I will not say all, the daughters have sacrificed. They said कि मेरे हिस्सा में आपके नाम लिख देते हो भैया को. Why are you eyeing your brother's property? What people said कि you have such like your husband is doing so well, you have so many like flats in your name, you have so why are you eyeing your brother's property? It's not eyeing, it's her right. We don't take it in that way. Then many women have what to say आपण लिहून देतो ना की हक्क सोड. सो हक्क सोड लिहिणं हे चांगल्या बाईचं हे आहे. आणि the conditioning is such that we feel, no, I have so much, why should I claim that property? You can claim and give it to somebody. But claiming is important because then you are setting a precedence that as a woman you have to only sacrifice. So that is the thing. Again, like strong, says there's some girl who is like 5'10" and nicely hefty. People will first think, iski shaadi kaise hogi? She's so tall. Everybody, mother is also concerned. Oh my God, my daughter is so tall. How will she get married? और इतने लड़के ही नहीं है इतने tall. So I think what we are mostly raising our kids, girls, to be married. So getting married is, even if you are educated, I think that is the aim of your life. And every parent says कि शादी के बाद तुम जो करना है करो. अभी शादी तक तुम ऐसे करो. So that is the thing. Second, like I said, the gender role again, which is also restricting men because they have to be breadwinners. Suppose there is a man who wants to become a dancer. Not possible in our society. Nacha. We actually don't use, like, we don't respect a male dancer to that extent. We respect a female dancer. So that is also predefined that if you are a boy, you have to go for education where you will get good salary. Because for a boy, you have to get a good salary. For a girl, you have to get into a good family. And third is the gender relations. What kind of decision making happens in a household? That is also that who can speak. If there is a father-in-law is saying something, can a daughter-in-law say something against that opposite? Can she express herself which is not in line with what father-in-law says? So I think we have a very clear system of who gets to speak. That is also there. And again, I'm saying we should not just look at it as so what if, like I'm saying, gender also what if she cooks and he earns money. One, women have triple burden. So one is they have to look after household. Second, the burden which nature has given them is not burden, but the responsibility of giving birth to a child, and then also some amount of community work. So women end up bearing triple burden. And most important part is differential access to and control over resources. The crux of the matter is that gender defines that who will get what. I just gave some example of property, but World Economic Forum shows that today women own less than 20% of world's land. So if we are 50% of the population, why should we have 20% of landowners? And in India, it is still lesser. Next. Yeah. So this is like the gender, whether women can talk and take decisions about their bodies or anything for that matter, for their education, for marriage. Like we have seen that in Sarah. There are so many cases that where the girls, if they decide to marry against the will of their family, the consequence can be anything as serious as getting murdered. So that's also that who makes the decision. And if you see at all stages of women's life, like I said, one example of education, it's like generally you go for education where one is if it is you need to go out and stay in the hostel, the parents will think about safety and all other things. Then that thing gets curtailed. Like your option for getting education in other cities gets slightly curtailed as compared to boys. And then marriage who makes the decision about marriage, whether women can freely decide whom they want to marry, at what age they want to marry, and then all other reproductive health related decisions I can't take, yes. So basically, I'll just say that because I want to go into details when I talk about reproductive health, but overall, because of this gender-based discrimination, we have to acknowledge that we are a society where women have a lower status as like where women's literacy rates are lower than men. We have less control over decision making about our bodies. So, like examples I gave, when to have children, all these decisions are largely taken by the family. Then violence, domestic violence is a huge concern, and maybe you all are reading the newspaper. The case, the high-profile case, which is being so. We shouldn't think that there is something in past. Even today, dowry deaths are happening, and so violence is definitely there. Barriers to accessing health information, critical services, I'll talk even more about comprehensive sexual education, restrictions on mobility. Now, again, sometimes we feel that now girls, I also see because I travel many times at night to catch early morning flights or come back late. So I see around like throughout night, Pune streets are full with girls. Pune is not a problem because Pune is considered much safer city. But we are working in Amravati and we found that in Ashram Shala, when the girls started menstruating, they were taken out of the school. So that is the kind of restriction they are facing because they have started menstruating. That means there is a possibility that their honor or maybe like there is an issue with their safety, so they are taken out of school. So that has happened since last month. I'm talking about limited access to finances. Again, next I give you the data about. So even if women are earning. So one, if you see this National Family Health Survey is a survey which is done by government and which covers all of India. So it's not only a pocket or one city, which shows that 49% is almost like half of women in 15 to 49 years don't have decision making power on how to spend their own money. So earning is one step, but whatever you are earning, whether you can decide what to do with that money is another. And again, like we have this Jan Dhan Yojana. So now if you ask, do you have a bank account in your name? Many women have, but they cannot operate it on their bills. So that is a few years ago, I had also done a study on self-help groups because self-help groups is a very good mechanism for rural women where they can invest their money and they can use that money to do some business. But when I did the analysis of where the money was used, largely it was for buying a motorbike for a son or borewell for agriculture. So it's and when we ask them why don't you spend for your own health, like when you're pregnant or post pregnancy, why don't you eat good food? That choice they didn't have. So having access to money is one, like having money is one, like being able to do it. Next. Yeah, so just be here for a moment. This is another challenge I often face. We also conduct a few trainings with like government officials and all. And everybody says that now we are a developed country. Why do we talk about gender-based discrimination? Everybody says, you see, now our finance minister is a woman. The women who led the operations in Pune, they are also women. Women are everywhere. They are doing so good. So gender equality is not a problem. You don't like this is not the time to talk about it. We have actually overcome that. So I just gave you some data around what's the status of gender equality in India. Also worldwide. Next. Yeah, so this is one figure. Just 2 minutes on. Currently, we are all the United Nations member states are following Sustainable Development Goals as the agenda for development. So these are basically 17 goals which UN has decided, and it has everything. Like for goal number one is poverty, goal number two is nutrition, three is health, four education. So all the aspects of our life, we have a very set agenda, 17 goals and 169 targets which have been sort of accepted by the UN member states. So the organization where I belong to, Equal Measures 2030, Equal Measures 2030 looks at data for almost 130 plus countries to look at what is the situation of gender equality in these countries for all these goals. So one of the figures what you can see is no country is on track to achieve gender equality, and at the pace which we are working today, it will be 100 years more. So none of us will be alive to see gender equality with the pace at which we are working. So point number one here is the rate at which we are progressing in terms of technology. We don't put in same efforts to change the social norms. So as a human being, it's possible for us because we are leaps and bounds. Like technological progress is happening. We are going on Mars. These are all good things. But when it comes to gender relations, probably the change is very, very slow. And this occurs all like African countries, America, all major countries. Next. This is India, and like this, I'm not this is India, all of us know. This is India's own picture about how we are doing in gender equality. So the 17 goals I talked about. So Government of India every 1 or 2 years comes up with this report on SDG Gender Index, SDG India Index, where they look at the progress of all the goals. And this is the goal number 5, which is about gender equality. And Government of India has if we were performing on this goal, it should have been green and yellow. Sorry, green and blue. But since it's red and yellow, we are very, very behind in terms of achieving the SDG 5 target. So that India itself acknowledges next. And just a few statistics around it. For example, sex ratio at birth. So by nature, if 1,000 boys are born, 950 girls should be born. So it will never be 1,000. Okay, so boys are slightly outnumbered because that's the nature's way of balancing. So ideally the target is 950, but if we see India, it's 899 and Maharashtra is further down. So definitely for every 1,000 boys who are born, 7 girls are not being born. Like they are being eliminated by before level. So that is the thing. And second is like ratio of male to female. Every aspect I will not go into details, but in terms of wage salary, women are getting 0.75%. Rate of crimes, our target is 0, but 63 per 100,000 female population. Percentage of elected women, we are aiming at 50%. Today we are in legislative assembly only 8.92%. Ratio of female to male labor force participation only 40%. Next. Women in managerial positions, our target is 245, hardly, not even, we have reached 200. Even contraception, demand is not met for everybody. And land holding, I have shown 20% worldwide. For India, it's 13.96 and Maharashtra 15.46. So if we are 50% of the population, 50% of the land should be in our name. But right now it's only 15.46. This is all Government of India's data. Next. Yeah. So basically, when I'm talking about reproductive health, we should know that child marriage is still a reality. 23% girls are married before 18. Son preference is another because it's a patriarchal society. Everybody wants at least one son. Two is better, more the merrier, but at least one we should have. Earlier, what happened? A family had like 3, 4 kids, so that balance was automatically like if you have 3, 4 kids, out of them at least one son, 3 daughters was possible. Now everybody wants one child, max 2 children. So within that, if you want to ensure that one should be son, then what we are saying that doing sonography and identifying whether it's a male or female and then eliminating is also happening, which we call sex selective abortion. So son preference. So son preference was earlier. So now we don't prefer son. There is a daughter aversion that we are saying. Son preference is we prefer if we have a son. Daughter aversion means we want sons, we don't want daughters. We have reached that stage. Sex selection I have spoken about. Inequities is major problem. Like you think of Maharashtra, within Maharashtra, Mumbai and Gadchiroli. These are almost two different countries in one state. Similarly, in India, if you look at Kerala and Bihar, a child born in Kerala and child born in Bihar, their fate, whether they will be alive at the age of 5 years, is totally different. The chances of a child born in Bihar is many times higher of death as compared to Kerala. So just by virtue of where I am born, it will decide whether I am alive by the age of 5 years. And privatization, again, something which we have accepted, and probably as a middle class, we are more like we don't use government schools, we don't use government hospitals. So that has led to a lot of privatization, and now the absolute poor people they cannot afford, and because nobody is going to public services, actually the quality has gone down. For example, in 70s, 80s, nobody felt that it is below their status to go to Sasul. But now, if I say I am taking treatment in Sasul, people what? You can't afford the other hospital. Why are you going to Sasul? So I think that kind of status has been attached to where are you seeking services from for schools and hospitals. So So just because we're talking about gender and health, so I have spoken about gender at length now. So I'll give a little bit of context of health because they are both affecting women's choices. Next. So just to say that governments uh, budgets for health are limited. So we call it out-of-pocket expenditures. In most of the countries, it's the government which takes care of the healthcare. Except like US is highly insurance-based service. But generally, we think that health should be a public good and government should provide. But in India, if you see this red part is out-of-pocket spending, which is really very high. Next. Yeah, this is just a comparison of few countries where you see per capita health spending in US dollars. This is again public-private both, like people's own contribution also. That's why you see USA is so high. India is 74, but if you look at Brazil, which is almost similar thing, so it's like almost 10 times higher than India. So government of India, like in India, the healthcare allocations and government share is hardly 34% in spending. Yes. Yeah. So this is another, yeah, just on this slide. So now I come to how gender is actually affecting access to healthcare for women when I talk about my body. Right? So, in gender, I was talking about how a good woman should be. And like Marathi people will understand, so she, somebody who is not complaining, who is able to bear the pain, is a virtue of a woman. A woman should be like somebody who is not complaining. So the first challenge women face is if they are, and this is based on my study on this is my PhD research, where I had looked at women who have undergone hysterectomy before the age of 40 years, and why did they accept it? And because 40 years is too young, like one of my respondents was even 25, 26 years old. So for urban women, the reproductive careers don't even start probably at 25, 26. And for a rural woman, it was like she had already finished, she had removed her uterus. So hysterectomy is removal of uterus. So basically, if there are 100 women who have any kind of reproductive health problem, it may be heavy bleeding, it may be white discharge, it may be itching. So one is for them, or for example, backache. For them to acknowledge that they have some health need is very, and to talk about it is gender. It's the way, like they can only talk about it in certain situations. There is a lot of normalization. For example, backache, let us say for women, backache is normal. So they won't even acknowledge it as a health problem. So that is one thing that whatever they have needs, first they need to acknowledge to themselves. And again, because they are not supposed to complain, they will not talk about it, even they acknowledge it. Next. Yeah. So perception of health problem is the one of the issues. Next. So out of 100 women who have need, probably few will perceive that they have a problem. Then comes the permission. Now, like if a man is not well, probably he can just walk out to a chemist, ask like mera sar dukh raha hai, whatever is problem. They can take the medication. They can also give it to go to the nearby city, take treatment and come back. But for women to get out of the house is first she'll have to think ki, if there is somebody else who is unwell. For example, if there is mother-in-law, father-in-law who is bedridden, she cannot go out. Even in urban areas, we have seen women delay their doctor's visit because somebody else is unwell. Second, she'll have to think about what time children come back from home. Do I need to cook for them? That thing. So, and then third, worst is to go, she won't go alone. I'm talking more about rural women. So don't just think about urban women. For a rural woman, if the PHC is like 25 kilometers from her village, she will have to either take a bus or we are assuming that there will be a bus. If there is no bus, she'll have to take some private transport. So somebody needs to accompany her. And then permission. I am unwell. I need to see a doctor. This is the permission is given by the husband. So in my PhD study, when I was asking them that at what stage did you get a permission to go to a doctor? So it's very common that when they are not able to function at all, it's because मराठी सांगायचं तुकड्याचे वांदे झाले. Because she was not able to work, she could not cook, and then family realized that this is serious. We are not able to eat. She is unwell. So it's not she is unwell. We are not able to eat because she is unwell. She cannot cook. The other family said कि 1 year when she was unwell, we hired some labor like शेताच्या काम करता, and then we managed the agriculture labor work for that year. But next year again hiring a labor is very difficult. So now we need to get rid of like her problem. So she needs to undergo hysterectomy so that she can work in the field. So Generally, it's like when the family, other members in the family have any problem, they actually think of that, okay, she needs to go and see. Again, I'm saying we will not say that this happens in each and every case. All these things come from a research which is done at a large scale, and then this theorization is done next. Then comes ability. Many times the family may feel that you need treatment, but having that kind of financial ability is a big thing, especially when I was talking about the private healthcare sector. That because if I know that this particular surgery is going to require 30-35,000, the family will say, let's wait, let's sell our crop. When the money comes, we can go for the surgery. So that's the ability. Next. Availability, again, the health system should be there. In urban areas, we have a lot of doctors around us, but in rural areas, you don't know how long you'll have to get a health system. So, out of all these women, these are the ones who will actually get any kind of treatment. So, these are all the barriers that they will have to face. So, when we talk about my body, my right, it's absolutely like nowhere close to that. Even I don't acknowledge, forget about others acknowledge it next. Yeah. So then the other issues which are unique to our context, one is like menstrual untouchability. Until date, in rural areas, women who are menstruating cannot remain inside the house, even if it is rainy season, whatever. And I'll tell you, in travel areas, because we also work in virtually, there is a system called Kurmagar. So there is a place which is like sort of chopri kind of thing, where the menstruating girls will have to go and stay there when they are menstruating. It may be waterlogged or it may be like snakes can be there, but they cannot stay in house. So it is so risky for them. So we have that extent of untouchability. And how it impacts one, again, I take example of my hysterectomy study. One family I asked that because the problem was not so serious, for which she underwent hysterectomy. So she said, no, what happens every month when I am menstruating, my husband has to cook. So he says की तू एकदाचं काढून घे म्हणजे ही कटकट जाईल. So the thing is that untouchability is actually leading to a decision of hysterectomy which is medically may not be required, right? This is so we think that this is something small cat English and then people also try to rationalize it saying that it's for their rest. It's not rest. They are given so many other work to do and they are not given properly to eat and hygiene. Basically, that is the time when you need good hygiene. But if you are outside your house, obviously that hygiene gets compromised. Second, again, very important, again, government of Maharashtra has banned the comprehensive sexuality education from our education system because we think that if we talk about these things with our children, they will indulge into sexual relationships. But we don't know that. We know that everything is in the phone. Yeah. If you don't give proper scientific information, they have access to a whole lot of information which is probably unscientific also. But we are not giving any information about the sexuality education. Sexuality is not just like sexual act. It's a whole lot of things about your reproductive health, your reproductive system, its functioning, its illnesses, then your sexual choices. Big, it's a huge spectrum of information that is required. And again, we conduct a lot of sessions in all the states, like from Assam, Gujarat, Maharashtra, everywhere. This is one common thing. Even women who have now attained menopause have no idea about why did they get menses in the first place. What was happening inside their body? There is very little information. Urban areas probably women now have access, but rural and 60% of us are still in rural areas. So 60% of our women population have no access to this information. Again, gender third is if women are giving birth to children, like we say that it's man should take the responsibility of contraception. Man cannot give birth, right? Because that is not possible by nature. But then at least this responsibility they can take, they can undergo vasectomy. But if you see out of all the couples who have had like surgery to end reproductive family planning, 98% will be women and 2% are men. Because again, it is related to masculinity, their performance, and then they do heavy work. Actually, it is such a simple surgery. Still, government has given so much of incentive. Still, men don't come for vasectomy. And another important area is access to safe abortion, which is again something which we don't talk about at all. There are a lot of stigma around abortion. So that is, we can, in terms of decision making, for example, if there's a couple who is married, let's take a like regular example, and if a girl, like the woman gets some opportunity for higher education, or maybe she is getting promoted and she finds out that she is 2 months pregnant. For her career, if that opportunity is very important, and if she says, I want to terminate this pregnancy, I don't want to go ahead, it becomes a huge issue within the family. Everybody says की हिला career महत्वाचं आहे, मुलं महत्वाची नाहीये. So it's like की then later the doctors will say if you terminate for the first time, next time pregnancy may be difficult. So nobody actually allows her to take that decision on her own. She is largely bound by what is expected from her. So that is another area. Hysterectomies I have spoken a little bit. Cesarean sections again I'll say because of know what is happening inside and some aspect of commercialization. So WHO says that 15% of deliveries can require cesarean if you want a good outcome. But in urban areas, it's gone up to 40% almost. So definitely there is some element of excessive cesareans. Next area is again uh, assisted reproductive technologies. Today, with the advancement of technology, every part of reproduction is can be managed by technology. If somebody is not having like good quality ovum, they can undergo treatment. They can actually undergo some injections and medications to have more number of ovum. Then for men also there are treatments if the sperm count is less. Then everything can be fertilized outside and then it can be inserted. So the entire process of reproduction is now technologically can be managed. Ovum can come from one woman, sperm can come from another woman. It can be fertilized outside. It can be grown in some other woman's uterus, and then baby can be given to full person. That is also possible with ARD. So earlier, when couples did not have child, many of them probably thought of going for adoption, right? Because they thought कि ठीक है अभी नहीं हो रहा है तो we'll go for adoption or we'll stay like that. But with this the technology, the compulsion for having a child has intensified a lot. It has no longer remained for a choice. And postmenopausal is another area which is totally neglected because we look at women from how they are contributing to the family's production. In production business, I'm saying from a work perspective. So postmenopausal women, especially in rural areas, they don't even talk about their problems because they are not considered and that's just contributing to the production. So postmenopausal women's problems are further neglected. Also, we were a very young society till now, but as we are like growing, we definitely have a sizable number of women who are post 60. Earlier, our life expectancy was less, so we don't even have enough research to know what's happening in that age group. Next. Yeah. So I have 5-10 minutes. I have time. Okay. So just I'll take like I'm saying what I have the points I'm trying to make, I want to also give you some statistics for that. So, simple thing like having good hygienic products for managing menstruation is not possible for all girls in India. So, if you look at 15 to 24, it's almost 25%, like 1 in 4 women does not have access. So, which is a large, so we call it a menstrual poverty. So, we are definitely in a menstrual poverty situation, especially girls from rural areas. And you get very clear, say, as the education is less, the access is lesser. If the family is poor, the access is still lesser. And obviously, then the outcome is that reproductive infections. Good part at the policy level we are changing. I was talking about binaries. Now, we say the language should be that menstruating women. Yeah, we should not say women or menstruating person. Yeah, so because man women is again binary. Trans. So yeah, so trans or non-binary person. So the policy has now included that word. Women, girls, and persons who menstruate. So you can identify yourself as I'm not a woman, but I am like person who menstruates. Next. Again, I was talking about like around 1 in 4 girls is married before 18. 1 in 10 girls in poor families have already had babies. So imagine by age of 15, and we are currently doing some analysis for NFHS for Maharashtra and from National Family Health Survey. And some girls before 18 also have 2 children. The number is small. I'm not saying it's a huge number and we are all like having babies in before 18. But still, in Maharashtra, which we consider as a very progressive state, there are girls who are having children before 18. Cesarean section, I said like 22%. This is all India thing. And if you go by state, because this also includes Bihar. If you put Bihar, Maharashtra together, obviously averaging the percentage comes down. 1% has stopped doctor. Next. Unnecessary hysterectomy. Yeah, so unnecessary hysterectomy that is clearly related to if you are not educated and if you go to a doctor with same problem, the chances that you will be suggested hysterectomy are much higher as compared to if you are educated. So it very clearly shows that if you are 12 or more years of education, the prevalence is 0.9%. But if it is women with no schooling, it is 7.2%. So it's almost 7 times higher. Now it's a complex area. I'll just talk a little bit about it. On one hand, as a society, we look at menstruation as a negative thing. Okay, so we never have see if invariably when I go to rural areas, if I ask them that what do you call menses, they say problem. The problems are it. Suppose a friend wants to tell her friend that I am having menses and I can't come, so things will say that was a problem hai, we are. So your starting point is कि this is a problem. So
Yeah.
if you look at something as your problem, the first thing to do is to get rid of the problem. So naturally it becomes that hysterectomy is always on your mind because this is my problem. Second, what happens, we also, because we have no knowledge about what is the role of uterus in my body, I think आपण म्हणतो त्याला पिशवी. पिशवी काय गर्भपिशवी. मग माझे गर्भ झाले आता I have 2 kids, I don't want any more kids. Then that becomes redundant already. And as a doctor, I have seen sometimes there is infection in the appendix, which actually you need urgent surgery. Still, people will take 2-3 opinions. Surgery, we try to avoid surgery as much as possible. But uterus hysterectomy is something. The moment doctor says you need hysterectomy, the first thing they'll get that. In my study, I have also seen women changing the doctor because this doctor did not suggest hysterectomy. The husband said people started questioning me, are you taking her to a good doctor who's not suggesting hysterectomy? So it has become a complex problem. It's not always that the doctor is suggesting. Sometimes women are also saying that we need hysterectomy because that kind of normalization happened. And basis of that is one is cultural, that you're looking at it as a negative thing, and second is lack of education. Yes. Yeah. So like I said, greater acceptance of hysterectomy. So if some woman has some white discharge problem, her friends will say, "So काढून तुझे इतने पिशवी." So even before you go to a doctor, probably your friends are telling you काढून घेणं is a better option. Again, rural areas, like I said, every time traveling that 25 kilometers is very difficult. For urban area, आपण doctor कडे 4 वेळा जरी gynecologist कडे जायचं, it's not that a huge problem. We can always go for multiple visits. But for a rural woman, single visit itself is a huge challenge. So multiple visits, they cannot actually go for it. Again, practical difficulties in dealing with reproductive health problems because managing heavy bleeding in urban areas is relatively easier because you can change pads 3-4 times and done. In rural areas where there are no pads, when they are working in the field for 10, 12, 14 hours, then they don't have any access to menstrual hygiene products, then that frequent bleeding, heavy bleeding is definitely a huge troublesome thing. So they would make a better next. Yeah. And this is again related to health system because there is no doctor at the village level. There is nobody who can cater to the problems at the village level. And that's why probably a female gynecologist, again, as a woman, to talk about your menstrual problems to the male doctor, it's a challenge. Yeah, and in India, we don't have so much of adherence to standard treatment protocols. Like suppose somebody comes with heavy bleeding, this should be done. It is largely sort of the doctors have a broader guideline, but in some countries, like if you don't follow that, you can be questioned. But in India, I think there's not that much of adherence to standard treatment protocols. Yeah, and regulation of private sector, like I said, current systems, we have lot many laws, and I know that private doctors are facing this struggle of actually compliance to so many things. But still, there are pockets where these hysterectomies are happening. Maybe some of you may have read news about the Beed area. These women who come for sugarcane cutting to Western Maharashtra, before they come for sugarcane cutting, they get their hysterectomies done because so that they don't need to take leaves for menstruation. So that is also happening. So definitely it is one area where regulation is required. Next. Maybe I'll skip this. We can see there's not much of research about women beyond 16 years. Next. Yeah. Again, I think I have talked a lot about women as patients, but we also need to remember this gender as a system assumes that caregiving is women's responsibility because we say we are nurturing, हम ममता से भरे हुए हैं, we can take care of others. That thing. So even if it's a baby who is the child is unwell, it's mother's responsibility. She'll take leave. If somebody senior in the family is unwell, invariably it's like ki, you stay at home, either you leave job if it is a very serious kind of thing, and that is really taking toll on them because caregiving is a, and if this service was outsourced, like the feminist economists are actually currently calculating that the amount of free labor we will do. You know, today we know that for I think 8 hours we pay some 800 rupees to that nurse or somebody who's taking care. So 24 hours if when somebody is taking is 2400. So 75,000 per month, right? If you would have hired somebody for that. And if it is for 1 year, you can imagine 7.5 lakhs. All that we do for free. And sometimes not even get acknowledged for that. Right? So that's a huge, like we are taking for granted that women will have to do it by virtue of being women. So that is also something which we need to talk about when we talk about gender. Next. Yeah, maybe I was this one time that it's not only the health part, but the large social determinants of health. And nutrition is one of the important. Again, how gender impacts is in rural areas. In urban areas, where affluent, like where the families are affluent, the amount of food is always enough. But if the amount of food is not enough in those families, women are generally eat later. Rarely you will find a woman who says that I eat before my husband comes back from work. I have not found that kind of thing in rural areas. की नवरा याच्या आधी मी जेवून घेते. नवरा 11 वाजता आला मी 11:30 जेवते. तो 12 वाजता आला मी 12:30 वाजता जेवते. So that is one. And when the food is not enough, she eats only what is left. So that is one of the reasons why women in India are so ill. There are many other. Again, I'm not putting one to one thing, but I'm just saying how gender contributes to it. Next. Yeah, this is just anemia prevalence. So if you see 10 to 19 when the menses starts, because it's her requirement has gone up, but her food intake is not matching with her requirement. So you see the anemia is almost more than double. 70% of boys in 10 to 19 and almost 40% of girls in 10 to 19 age group are anemic. Next. Yeah. So this is, I just summarize what I said. So one is like gender is a social construct. So we have as a society, and it's for us. Maybe for Maharashtra, we can also talk that we have defined a certain way how women should behave, how men should behave, and then it is linked to access to information, access to resources, and access to decision making. And then we have looked at all the reproductive health aspects, starting from menstruation to contraception, pregnancy, childbirth, then hysterectomies and assisted reproductive technologies, and a little bit about menopause, and how gender at every stage actually decides whether I am taking decision out of my choice or it's like is the system which is competitive. So, for example, exactly because total lack of sexuality education, I don't know what's happening inside my body. So, if a doctor says you need hysterectomy, I say I need hysterectomy. If the doctor says you need cesarean, I say I need cesarean. So, I think the first point is access to information. So, when we say informed decision making, it's like I know what is the positive of this treatment, what is the negative of this treatment, what are the pluses, minuses, benefits, side effects, everything. And very rarely, even we as educated people, we don't take that kind of informed choice. So I have a like I remember one incident when I was taking one of my relatives for MRI, and the MRI, the consent form had a whole list of problems that may happen because of MRI. And the last line was that the doctor has explained me all the side effects, and I am signing after knowing this. And nobody ever told me anything which is this इसमें sign करो. So I read the last line. I said, you have written that you have explained everything to me, but you have not told me anything. So I will not sign. And they were taken aback because none of the patients has ever said, I will not sign. So I said, you tell me what problems can happen, and then I will sign. So that kind of informed decision making, even we are not doing. So we need a lot more proper information in public domain. Second, very important, ये involved attached on. We generally say कि ते बायकांचे असं म्हणून की though child is like now तो वडिलांचं नव्हतं पण सगळं बायकांच्या वाट्याला पण सो दॅट इज वन आता दॅट मीन्स इवन इन रुरल एरियाज मेल इन्व्हॉल्वमेंट इज व्हेरी व्हेरी नेसेसरी to so that they also get sensitized about what women are going through and they whatever responsibility they can take they should take like I said contraception is something that they should easily take.
Yes.
Condoms and vasectomy condoms are most
More
what do you say you don't like you are not taking anything inside your body like or oral contraceptive pills or property everything is going in women's bodies. So condoms are not like that. But men hardly take that responsibility. Third, very important gender sensitization programs for everybody, community at large, but obviously the policymakers also. Like we said, now at least we are changing the language, we are also making it inclusive for trans people. But like I said, Marathi people, if it is not acknowledged, maybe we need some sensitization at all levels and inclusion of women in decision making, nothing about us without us. So whenever a program is designed, we need to devise a system where we can take women's inputs. For example, in Gujarat, we did this women-centered maternal health care. So we asked women, what do you want? As a pregnant woman, what do you want? And something which women came up, which nobody, like not even NGO workers, even policy makers, they said, हमको शांति चाहिए peace. So, as a during pregnancy, the violence that pregnant women face more violence. That also is documented. So they said we want Shanti. So these are if you ask women, they'll tell you what they want, but we don't have that kind of system. It's, yeah. So I'll just stop here. He technologically we have come डावीकडे जात आहे उजवीकडे स्टिअरिंग व्हील आहे सो वी हॅव women आधीच्या जात्या बसायच्या त्या व्हीलवर बसतात वी हॅव प्रोग्रेस्ड अ लॉट सो नो पॉइंट आय एम नॉट सेइंग दॅट वी आर लाईक स्टील 1950s we have changed a lot but the same thing has not happened in terms of changing social norms. I think there our progress or there our pace at which we are changing is still slow. So we need to work fast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it was an eye-opening session, and I feel very sad about the fact that till the time I will be alive, we are not going to reach any level of gender equality. Statistics definitely we as students have gone in National Family Health Survey, but if you go in depth, I never knew that this comes out of it. So thank you so much for these insights. And now we are open for question answer. One more thing to mention, I'm genuinely happy that there are few men in the crowd today.